Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. All right, instant reaction. Former NFL scout John Middlekauff. 3 and Out podcast. It's NFL schedule release, which is the closest thing to adult entertainment for me. Once the season ends, this is cotton candy when I was 9. I'll eat it until my teeth rot. So, and I know I like it way more than the average person.
But Colin, can we push back against all the haters? Because there is a lot of people, especially considered the sports media, they're like, this isn't that. The NFL is an event business. When Dana White announces a fight card, it's a big deal. That's what the NFL is. Like the games, do you know what the NBA and Major League Baseball would give to have their games in the regular season matter? This matters. Yeah, we knew the opponents, but we didn't know the days, the times, the bye weeks, the setup. This is an event sport. I mean, it's why it's taken off the way it has, right?
You can tell they want Jim Harbaugh to start 2-0. The Chargers get the Raiders at home, one of the weaker teams, and then the Panthers on the road. They want a 2-0 Jim Harbaugh. Listen, there are certain things the NFL, they're going to take care of. Like, let's take companies, for instance. This is the strongest Amazon Thursday night schedule. Remember the first few years of Amazon? It was awful. Like,
oh my God. It was like Titans, Texans when the Texans were bad. It was every week.
Now Thursday, they start with Josh Allen and Tua. The next week, it's Aaron Rodgers. The next week, it's Dak Prescott in Dallas. Week 6, you get the Niners, Seattle. Week 8, it's Harbaugh, Jim. Week 10, Burrow against Lamar Jackson. We know the NFL, Netflix got Christmas games, streaming service. They're taking care. Amazon clearly said, listen, what's your future? What are we going to pay? What can a network pay? I thought they took care of Amazon as much as you can. I mean, you got to be careful on Thursday because you want some close geographical matchups. Like New England Jets is a really easy trip for both teams. That's an easy trip. Buffalo, Miami's not, but it's the first one. But
there's a Niners-Rams Thursday night game. They like doing that.
One of the things that jumped out to me is that, Netflix, they did a solid. They give them Christmas games. Amazon Thursday. I'll be honest with you. Monday Night Football, John, there is what I would call a star or high-profile quarterback in 17 weeks. Now, I'm counting Caleb Williams and Tua as high-profile. It's the best Monday Night Football schedule I've seen. So again, Disney money, Amazon money, Monday and Thursday night are going to weaken Sunday to some degree. There are star quarterbacks being taken out of Sunday games.
Well, in a weird way, that Sunday morning for us on the West Coast, the 10 a.m. kickoff for the NFL is a little bit of a throwaway at this point. Right, the afternoon, the Fox main game and the CBS game matter. They're all in on Sunday Night Football. Monday night, once they hired Troy and Joe, became a really, really big deal. Peyton's involved. And let's face it, Amazon's top 2 or 3 company in the world. So they're not going away. Streaming's not going away. To me, what jumped out, though, is Netflix reportedly paid $75 million a game, and they got 2 of them. I looked at their market cap, top 40 company in the world. Well, are they going to grow or are they going to shrink over the next 10, 20 years? And how you're in the business, broadcast television, the cable bundle. We know how that's going. We know the change of everything. We see it in our podcast business compared to traditional radio. To me, what I saw, what they did to Netflix, they didn't just give them 2 random games on Christmas. They gave them Chiefs at the Steelers and the Ravens at the Texans. So equivalent 4 playoff teams. You could argue the biggest star in the sport in Mahomes. The Ravens were right there to go to the Super Bowl last year. The Texans are a trajectory like this, and the Steelers are a top 5 brand. To me, Netflix, a little bit of a precursor. Are we looking at the next television deal? Is there just a package on Netflix on Sunday, maybe? Because let's face it, when I get in bed and she grabs the remote, we don't turn on. We have YouTube TV, she goes to Netflix. And I looked right before we hopped on. They have 80 million subscribers in America. Maybe they're saying we get the NFL. Is that number 100 within a couple years?
Well, you and I saw the same thing, is that we know streaming services are going to gobble up some of these games. The NFL rewards who rewards the NFL. Roger Goodell has 32 bosses. They're called owners. I thought it was easily the best Thursday schedule. I thought Netflix got great games. And I thought Monday Night Football. It is interesting when Buck and Aikman went to ESPN. I thought for years and years, and this is not a shot at anybody at any company, but I thought the NFL didn't love some of, Booger McFarland on a crane. It looked it was Jason Witten missed. It kind of felt like ESPN, when John Skipper ran it, just didn't understand that the NFL's king, not the NBA. John just, to me, did not create a strong alliance. John Skipper's out. Pataro's in. Bodenheimer came in for a while. Jimmy Pitaro, you can see they treat the NFL like it needs to be treated. They upgrade the Monday Night Football crew, and they were rewarded with 17 weeks of high-profile quarterbacks. So, I said this today on the air. Nothing the NFL does is random or without thought. Like baseball baseball, literally networks go to baseball and say, Fox is like, can you create some events? Like that the game they did in Iowa, like, oh, that's really watchable. That's fun.
Yeah.
The NFL, they know who butters the bread. Thank you to our friends at Panini America, official trading card of our draft coverage here at the Volume, and NFT, an official trading card. Listen, whether you're looking for a legendary card or a rookie sensation, Panini America has you covered. They have NFL, WNBA, FIFA, sought after NBA cards. This is what they do. If you're into cutting edge digital collectibles, don't miss Panini's NFT platform at nft.paniniamerica.net. Got that? So you can be a collector of physical cards or a digital enthusiast. Panini America has you covered. They have popular cards from Donruss, Prism, Select, and more. So if you're into trading cards, Panini America is the way to go, especially if you're into digital trading cards. Visit paniniamerica.net or download the Panini Direct app today. It's the official trading cards and NFTs of the Colin Cowherd draft coverage. You're into it, they're into you, and they deliver. Prism, Donruss, Select, got them all the top cards and more.
And I think it's pretty telling. And I told you this a long time, a couple months ago. The Belichick changed his perception, go on television. What's he doing now? Monday Night Football with Peyton and Eli. But they did it in the first quarter, because the last couple of years since they got Joe and Troy, I just want to watch the game. They're a high-level broadcaster. I haven't watched Peyton and Eli, even though I like hanging out with Peyton and Eli. Well, now, during the first quarter, if Bill's on, I might flip over. But the meat of the game, when it's doing a higher rating, I'm going to go back. So they have gone all in. Monday Night Football, you've been watching your whole life. For me, in the 90s, when I was a kid, used to really matter, and it felt like it really dipped, and it feels like it's back. And I know everyone's pushed back against Thursday night. It's like, guys, you do know the players split the revenue with the owners, and that is a complete cash cow. And I've heard like Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce say they like it, because if you do your job and you win that game, you get a mini bye the following week. So it's pretty advantageous if you're a good team. You win that game, you take care of business, and boom, you get the weekend off, and you can let your body recover.
One of the things I wrote down today, by the way, Sunday Night Football, there's a star or high-profile quarterback every week except week 15, but that's the Packers against Seattle. So Jordan Love may not be high-profile yet, but the Packers are a huge brand. So one of the things I wrote down, early Sunday afternoon will be weaker than usual. Between Monday night, Sunday night, Amazon, the CBS and Fox games are always great. Those are always great games.
Didn't it feel like that last year? A lot of the 10 a.m. kickoff games, you could kind of just, there might be one game you really had to pay attention. We do this for a living. I had 4 boxes. I'm like, I don't even need to watch the Panthers and the Falcons.
So it's interesting to me that that you jumped on that. So give me a team individual. Give me a couple teams individually that jumped out to you.
Well, I heard your theory and you talking about the Rodgers situation, I think it's just simple. And I know coaches and executives like GMs, the league, all they care about is money. I mean, that's their job, right? So the ratings. I think Rodgers is still a massive, massive needle mover. And like the week one, I thought when I was looking at the potentials, because I thought the Niners were going to get Sunday night or Monday night football. You kind of feel once you knew
A lot of
Thursday
stars.
night, we already knew the Friday night game. We didn't know the Sunday night game, but I was like, I think the Niners are getting one of those. You looked at their schedule. It's like I could see them throwing the Cowboys or the Jets. And then once it was reported that the Cowboys did the Brady thing, which is genius. I mean, how many people are going to watch that game? 35 million people on Sunday afternoon. The Niners, when they're winning, are a top 2 or 3 brand in the league rating wise. And Aaron Rodgers by himself, especially coming off this injury, controversial to some, but he's just a polarizing player. And the Jets are a New York major brand. I don't know if the Jets are going to be very good. I'm sure we'll dive into it. But you put that thing on, just like they did last year. I remember, like all of us around the country, sitting there, Jets, Bills. It's going to feel really big and do a huge number. But tough game for him. It does get a little easy off the bat. Then he goes to the Titans. Then he plays the Pats, who I think are going to be terrible. Denver, rookie quarterback. McGlinchey's their right tackle. The Jets have a good pass rush. Minnesota, we'll see. They're in a little transitional period. So the Monday night game, if they can just get through that healthy, I do think they could rattle off a couple wins.
I saw it the opposite. My take was that you can only do so much because the Jets, the schedule is what the schedule is, right? If you
know the teams,
right. And a lot of it's baked in. You play the Bills twice, Miami twice, New England twice, your conference, your division plays certain divisions. But I thought they made Aaron's season as tough as you could make it. So they start, it's weak, right? So first of all, the last thing you want to do in a rebuild O-line is face the Niners defensive front in week 1. That's a tough draw. 3 games in 11 days to start, again, with a rebuilt O-line. They have 5 short weeks and an international game in weeks 1 through 11. So the schedule, the quarterbacks they face isn't daunting. They could have done them way more rest favors. Older quarterbacks and older people tend to be creatures of habit. As I've aged, I really like Peyton Manning. Hated Sunday night football games. Hated.
You're waiting around all day.
Aaron Rodgers, they give him 3 games in 11 days to start, 5 short weeks, an international game, and Niners with an O-line rebuild. The quality of the opponent isn't great.
It is Will Levis and Jacoby Brissett.
I will acknowledge that. The games are the games. But old quarterback, rebuild O-line, and a lot of short weeks. It's like for older quarterbacks, like Brady would tell you, like, I want to get going. Those old quarterbacks love 1:00 games. They love them.
What? And there is not a harder travel than playing Monday Night Football if you're a coastal team, but on the East Coast to the West Coast and flying home. Because what time are they? The game ends at 8:15. By the time they get out of there, they're getting home at 5, 6 in the morning. So it is, and then it's difficult on your coach. It's a very, very difficult stretch. But if you had to draft, if you knew you were playing the Niners across the country Monday Night Football, I think we could all acknowledge the Titans might be a top 5 team you would pick, right? Just independently. So, and then the Pats on a short week, your home opener. I think the Pats are going to be pretty bad. Plus, you just have a lot of, your divisional opponent. And then you get Denver rookie quarterback off that kind of mini bye. So if they can find a way to be 2-1, I think they're in pretty good shape going to Denver. Though, and I've been, I would say, very hesitant, and I was very bullish on them last year. Like you said, a lot of older players. And these aren't just like older, these are older, often injured players. And I listen, clearly modern medicine and these surgeries have improved greatly. My dad had the same injury Chris Finch had in the mid-90s, and he did it in New Zealand fishing, and they told him he would never walk straight again. Now he's like, send me back to America. But still, it was a much different procedure in 1996 than it is for him. He's up on the bench a week, 2 weeks later. Not saying that he can walk, but my point is, I think we just accept Cousins and Rodgers. Both these guys are old. And Rodgers is really old because he's been playing a lot longer, and his game is much more predicated on moving around. So maybe modern medicine is just incredible. We won't notice it as much, but I would be hesitant. I say the same thing with Atlanta. I think most people that follow football are like, Atlanta's going to win the division. They are. I like Raheem Morris, but we have no clue what he's going to look like as a head coach. Cousins coming off the Achilles, the weirdness with the Penix. Their defense is more than a question mark. And there's a healing process. Remember Tom coming off the ACL that next year? He was very hesitant. And he's Tom fucking Brady. So we're talking now. Rodgers is much more accomplished than Cousins. So if he is just, I think we would both agree if he's playing at a B or B plus level, that they would be a real team. But if he's a C plus ish level and not the movement wise, the other factor with them is, and I think we've both talked about it on our shows, that leak about the coordinator situation, like regardless, the Jets are always a mess because of the ownership. Their coordinator's just not very good. So I know Aaron's friendly with them, but it's not like he's Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or Andy Reid. I mean, that's a huge part about the sport, right? Who's calling the plays? Maybe Aaron just ends up essentially calling the plays.
So I said I think the NFL wants to see Jim Harbaugh get off to a good start. They open with arguably the two easiest games on their schedule: Raiders at home and Panthers. That's about the, Raiders aren't good. They get them at home, and then the Panthers. So those are good. That's a 2-0 start probably. I also looked at the NFL with Chicago. Again, Fox would love Chicago to pop. I mean, just a huge market.
So would I.
What do they get with a rookie quarterback? Tennessee at home to start. New coach, new staff. And then week 5, home Carolina. A very winnable game against Washington early. They get a bye into it. So 2 weeks to prepare for a very winnable game. Those feel like wins to me for Chicago. I do think, again, you could have stacked Green Bay on the road early. You could have stacked this schedule, Detroit, open at Detroit, because Chicago's a big brand. They gave them a couple of layups early.
I do think when it comes to a rookie quarterback, let's use Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, for example. They're playing the long game. Sean Payton's not going anywhere. This new operation in Washington's. So if there's up and downs and your guy loses confidence, takes him a couple of weeks to gain it back, whatever. We're okay winning 6 games this first year. There is tangible pressure on the coach in Chicago, right? He can't afford to go 7-10 or he'll be fired. I agree with you on the Titans situation, but then their next 3 games for a young quarterback who is extremely talented, like it's not like he's coming off an 11-win season. I mean, it was a lot. At the Texans, at the Colts, I think both those teams are going to be really good. They both loaded up. Indy just drafted a pass rusher in the top 15. The Texans added one during free agency. And then you play the Rams. Like, that's just a tough early stretch. I don't care how talented you are. Young people, confidence can ebb and flow. And the pressure, Chicago, the hype. I do think that's just a tough early stretch. Now, if all of a sudden they're 3-2, I mean, we might be looking at a 10 or 11 win team.
Did you notice with the Cowboys schedule? And we know in the last month, mostly the NFL wants division games. You want your Miami Buffaloes, although Miami Buffalo,
especially your good teams that you think are going to be
Buffalo
competing for the playoffs
pretty early. But Dallas has 3, out of division games that are pretty tough. The Niners, the Ravens, and the Lions. They're done with all of them by week 8. So with Dallas, again, McCarthy, Dak, this is an experienced team. They don't backload it, because they know the Giants and Washington won't be great. They get their 3 toughest, to me, the 3 games that you look at and go, the 3 best rosters they play will probably be San Francisco, Baltimore, and Detroit. And those are all done by week 8. So if you go 1-2 on those, they could have stacked a couple of those, week 14, week 13. So you go into these tough, brutal, cold weather road games in division. No, they got rid of their tough games early. Again, what do I like Harbaugh getting a 2-0 start? Listen, Dallas I thought it went in their favor. That was my take.
I do think that Cleveland, I'm not expecting the same what we saw last year. I mean, obviously they're all in a Deshaun Watson. His cap hit has really kicked in. The roster's, I don't think, going to be as good just moving forward, obviously. And I'm not sure he's still a good player. But even if they take a huge step back, we all know week one is tough, right? You could play the worst team in the league in week one. Everyone has the same hopes and dreams. Everyone's 0-0, especially at home. And Cleveland is a tough place to play. And the hype on that game with Brady calling it, that's a sneaky big game because then all of a sudden, like, I think most people think the Saints were really shitty last year. They did go 9-8, and their offense was mainly putrid. Well, they add Kubiak's kid who comes from Shanahan. I think the Saints are going to be better. And then you got Baltimore. It's just a tough little early stretch for a team that I don't want to say they're walking on eggshells, but the McCarthy story, the Dak, if they don't extend them, it could get weird, and it could get weird fast. I just got that Cleveland game circled. I think that is going to be I can see Cleveland winning that thing and Cleveland being a 6-7 win team.
Speaking of Cleveland in that division, I'm going to make an argument that the toughest schedule in the league I saw was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay.
Oh, it's really hard.
So you have better rosters than these teams, but they load them up at Atlanta, at Denver, at Indy, and Harbaugh. That's a rough start. I mean, again,
I agree.
You have better rosters than Atlanta, Denver, the Chargers, and Indy. 3 of the 4 on the road, and you come out of that road streak with Dallas 2 weeks later, Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's rough. And did you see the last 6 quarterbacks Pittsburgh faces? Burrow, Deshaun Watson, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, and Burrow. Like, Mike Tomlin is going to be on a network broadcasting. And by the way, I predict he'll be great. I've talked to 2 network execs who would hire Mike Tomlin tomorrow.
Are you shorting the Steelers this year?
I am shorting them. I mean, did you have to put at the end of the year, the last 3 quarterbacks, Lamar, Mahomes, and Burrow in the last month?
Did you see the story, though, about Burrow's hand surgery, the percentage of it keeping? Most surgeries are 90 to 95%. That wrist hand surgery is like 70 to 75% success rate. And then no matter how well it goes, there's basically guaranteed inflammation. It's a little trickier than just your ACL or your broken leg. I do think that's something to keep a heavy eye on. Now, if he plays 17 games, I think we'd all acknowledge they're going to be one of the better teams in the NFL. But if that thing crops up where it is, I mean, it would be a major problem. I thought the moment that they signed Russ, before we even knew their schedule or who they were playing, one, they're not financially invested in him at all, right? They're paying him about $1 million. Where even Denver last year, let's say hypothetically Sean Payton was out on him by October 1st. Financially, he had to see if he could make it work. And then the leash there is not going to be long. They have no draft capital invested. They have nothing invested. And they do have another guy on a 1-year contract who might not be good either, but at least is physically brings a lot more to the table. And we saw Arthur Smith, win with Ryan Tannehill and Marcus Mariota. So it's like, I just don't think this guy's getting a long leash. He's not going to be dinking and dunking, and they're 1-3, and he gets to keep his job. So it's just moment you move teams and they're not paying you anything, he better play well and they better have success, or he will go to the pine. I looked at
Pittsburgh today, and I thought, I know Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. That last 6-game stretch, you'll have the second best quarterback in all of those games, all of them. One of the things I always look at is how many great quarterbacks do you face? The Jets don't face a lot of great quarterbacks. But again, they have 7 standalone games, 6 night games, 5 short weeks, an international game. So the Jets' schedule is pretty easy. The NFL didn't do them any favors with nights, standalones, international.
Yeah.
I look at Pittsburgh, and there's just no way. If the Jets have the easiest schedule in terms of facing elite quarterbacks, the Steelers got hosed that last month and a half. They'll be underdogs potentially in all those games.
Well, I mean, if everyone's healthy, they easily could lose to the Ravens twice. I mean, the Bengals, the Eagles, the Chiefs. It's just, that's really, really brutal. And let's face it, by that time, you're not 100%. You're going to have some injuries. They've kind of been at a similar spot the last several years. They usually don't have some huge margin for error, right? They don't start the seasons 9-3. That they've been hovering around 500 right till the bitter end these last couple of years. So I understand what they did. I would have done what they their moves at quarterback, getting rid of Kenny Pickett, getting rid of the group they had for Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. But just because those guys are much more famous doesn't mean they're going to be much more effective. And I'm not a Deshaun Watson guy, but obviously if Lamar is healthy and Joe Burrow is healthy, the gap between Russell Wilson, Justin Fields quarterback room is a mile long.
Hey, Philadelphia is one of the real blue bloods in terms of at Fox. Like, we like Philadelphia winning. Philadelphia winning, and Philadelphia usually does. So Philadelphia is really good for Fox. Boy, the NFL could have made that. Now, they opened with Green Bay, but, week 2, Atlanta.
8 hours away. I mean, in international
Right. So it's
territory.
tough for both teams.
Lose a
But
home
then
game.
week 2, Atlanta. Week 3, New Orleans. Week 4, Tampa. Week 5, bye into Cleveland, the Giants. The NBA playoffs are heating up. Man, they have been so good. I know it's over, but Lakers Nuggets may have been a 5-game series. It was great. Knicks, Sixers, amazing. Why don't you sign up for the DraftKings Sportsbook app? It takes 90 seconds. The official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're in DraftKings, once you sign up, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Great proposition, right? $5, you get $150. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. The code's Colin, C-O-L-I-N. It's me, C-O-L-I-N. Really quick, really easy. If you've never bet sports before, check it out. Really makes the games fun. The code is Colin. New customers get $150 in bonus bets by betting 5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Philadelphia is going to get off to a good start. That's a pretty favorable schedule. And even at the end of the year, they end with the Giants. I mean, Giants could be the worst team in the league. And, they also they've got Carolina in week 14. They've got Washington in week 16. Like, again, like if this is where the schedule matters. Like, I do think Nick Sirianni, this is a pressure year, right? Mike McCarthy, it's a pressure year.
For sure.
Philadelphia looks like they should at least start and finish the season on winning notes. I mean, come on. Week 2, Atlanta. Week 3, New Orleans. Week 4, Tampa. You've got a much better roster than those teams.
Well, they get a huge advantage from the simple fact of Washington starting a rookie quarterback. It Philly should beat them twice, and they have
And the Giants are
the
this.
Giants.
This is one of the weaker.
I know
Giants
they
teams.
lost the last. Yeah, I mean, the Giants, I think, have a chance to be one of the worst teams in the league. And let's face it, I mean, the Cowboy-Eagles games have been really good for the most part, but I think we all have to acknowledge sitting here today, the two rosters, the gap widened over the offseason. Do you agree with that between the Cowboys and the Eagles? Like, the Eagles should be the heavy favorite.
I have
the current odds
Washington
to win that
finishing
division.
second. So, you know what's really interesting?
I don't think that's out of the realm. Honestly, both teams could be 7-8 and not, 7-8 wins, right? Them and the Cowboys kind of range.
2 years ago and last year, I really felt like the AFC, they hit on so many young quarterbacks. The AFC, CBS finally, even though they have smaller markets than the NFC and Fox, like, I was finding myself watching a lot of AFC games. And then a lot of the quarterbacks got dinged up or hurt. If Caleb and Jaden Daniels hit, Washington and Chicago, those are big TV markets. And they've been dormant for about 15 years. Is very quietly, and it's good for my employer, the NFC big markets, Chicago, Philadelphia, Washington, could be back. Because I think Caleb and Jaden Daniels are going to be hits. I mean, you know this. I mean, Washington 20 years ago, John, was arguably not only a blue blood, it was a third best TV draw in the sport. It was, I mean, the Joe Gibbs years, 90, 91, 92, those were like high profile, quirky, fun, crazy Super Bowl. And they just, due to bad ownership, went into the tank.
That's why that RG3 year was such a big year. It felt bigger, it felt longer than just a 12-month span.
So it's interesting to me. If Caleb and Jaden hit, it's not just good for the teams. It helps the NFC, because the AFC in the last 6-7 years, they just keep hitting on these guys. Herbert, Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud. It changes the league. It changes your conference. So yeah. I think Jaden and Caleb are hits. They feel like, I mean, I don't know if Eberflus lasts, but I have Philadelphia, Washington, Dallas third, Giants fourth.
I would probably agree with you sitting here right now. And I would probably put Dallas. I mean, I think they could take a big step back. And when I say a big step back, I mean, they've been winning 12 games for 3 straight years. So all of a sudden you win 8. That'd be a disaster. Adios, McCarthy. But they're going to be dependent on a young offensive line, a lot of moving pieces. What you and I have talked about, and you've been hammering this forever, Dak dependence on the running game. I mean, they're going back to the Ezekiel Elliott. Well, they don't have a choice, right? They need a running back. The NFC is pretty top heavy, right? I mean, the 49ers have dominated for 5 years. Now the Lions are really good. The Packers have kind of consistently been good. The Eagles. So if the Cowboys step back, there's going to be an opening. I think Tampa's pretty good. I mean, I think Jason Light did a really good job of keeping that team together. Baker does not need to be the number one pick. He just has to play, I don't know, like a Derek Carr did with the Raiders or Cousins, has done with Minnesota. He does not need to be Aaron Rodgers in his prime, which is ideal for him. And I think Tampa feels pretty good. And just from a talent standpoint, high-end players, Tampa has a lot of them. And I know everyone's talking about Atlanta. I could see Tampa winning 10-plus games.
So let's circle back to what we initially said. It does look like that the NFL really made, more than I remember, the standalone game big. Now, Fox has always owned Sunday afternoon. That game's been big forever, so they'll always do fine. But Monday night,
Tom won't hurt.
Monday night football schedule is the best I've ever seen. Sunday night football, star quarterback in every week except week 15. Amazon best Thursday. So I think what the league is saying is, as we circle back on this, Sunday early is a little bit of an appetizer. We're going to go Fox, CBS, big Sunday afternoon, big Sunday night, big Monday night, and a massively improved Amazon Thursday, and then Netflix on Christmas. So in terms of, one of the things I don't love, I think it's hurt other leagues. It's really hurt baseball. And NBA is now moving into it. You're making it harder for consumers to find the games. Now, the NFL is fairly bulletproof. Listen, and almost everybody I know has Netflix. I mean, they really do. Netflix is everywhere. Amazon.
I don't know a soul who doesn't have it.
Amazon, I have. I don't know if I would without the NFL. I definitely would not have Peacock without the NFL. I definitely would not. I don't think I'd have Amazon. They offer it every time I go to Whole Foods, but I don't go there a lot. But I would say Netflix is, I just think I know some things in life, like I'll give you an example. It used to be so easy to turn on a fucking television. I got 3 things to turn on, 4 or 5. If you move anymore and go into a new place, I can't imagine being 70 years old and you just want to watch 60 minutes. It is such a pain in the ass to watch TV now. But it's what's happened with technology. It'll be easier in 20 years. It's not always easy. All the streaming is a pain in the butt, especially for older consumers. But my takeaway, like baseball is so desperate. They're on Roku now on like Sunday mornings, which is embarrassing. Yeah. But I think we just have to come to terms with it, is that at some point you have to get, like ESPN Plus is hemorrhaging. They have the UFC, which I buy 4 or 5 packages a year. But other than that, I don't buy anything on ESPN Plus. It's hemorrhaging $35 million a year. I think the reality is, like Netflix, they stopped growing internationally. Like they hit a ceiling with subscribers. What's the only way to add 30 million domestic subscribers? The NFL.
Isn't NBC currently kind of losing their ass? Aren't they struggling?
Have you seen the NBA schedule? They may win. You're just signing a check to lose $800 million a year.
So I get, for them to survive over the next 10 years, I'm with you. I've defended. I'm a bad guy to ask because I cut the cord and I have YouTube TV. So my transition to the NFL package was pretty seamless. Like I'm with you. Netflix, everyone has. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, meaning you get free shipping, you get it free. So like I have them, and she watches so many shows on Bravo. Peacock is connected with them, so we have them. So it's harder for me to understand. Like I understand if a guy doesn't have a lot of money, NBC, CBS, Fox, it's always been so easy. But these channels aren't going to exist in the next 10 or 20 years. And Netflix is going nowhere. And Apple TV is going nowhere. And Amazon they have all the money. So like you said, NBC is going to lose their ass. Netflix could have done it, lose their ass, not even noticed. They just chose not to because they realized how many people are actually going to watch.
NBC's NBA deal, which I don't think is a good deal. I mean, if what They
It's
don't get
terrible.
any finals, and they only get a conference final every other year. Plus, the league's getting very international. So I honestly think, and I love the NBA. I love the NBA. I have forever. But the league is becoming a little, it's becoming a little like baseball and hockey. A lot of the stars are guys we don't follow in college.
For
So it's
sure.
getting very international. And now you're going to force people to watch it on Amazon and Peacock. And I'm sorry, it's not going to help their domestic ratings or domestic popularity. Now, the NBA, because it has stars, will not be baseball or hockey. It'll always draw people because of stars. But I think a lot of these cable, like NBC going NBA, it's a Hail Mary. It keeps them relevant for about 6 to 8 more years, and that's it.
I just think technology changed so quickly. It feels like we've been doing this for so long. I look, Netflix had 70 million total subscribers less than 10 years ago. They have 270 million now. I'm getting new blinds in my house. It's all automated on my phone. And I looked at the guy. I said, I opened my garage on my phone. My pool sweeper's on my phone. I can do my ice maker on my phone. There's going to come a day in our lives where everything's on this. It's no different with streaming. Everything we do is going to be under some umbrella, under Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV. It's not when's it going to happen? It's happening now. And I think I give the credit to and I think it's a lot of the owners' kids because I do think the older guard is very, very loyal because they've made all of their money off the old guard TV, right? The money, CBS,
Yeah.
NBC. Let's face it, generationally, you're just not going to be as loyal because you'll just start looking at the books and see who has the money and they want in. You don't even need to really beg them. They want in.
Well,
And then you give them a taste. What happens with the NFL? They're not going to regret it.
But I also think there is such power. I mean, I know what time all the NFL games are on right now as we speak. I have no clue when baseball, MLS, NBA.
Well, their games don't matter,
That's
but
right.
the regular season, their games don't
The
matter. They're
NFL
irrelevant.
does have something where I think it will help Fox and CBS and Monday Night Football is I know the schedule. It's baked into my life. I
For
know I
sure.
literally do travel. So I travel a lot during the football season. Ann and I'll go to Chicago. And I've already bought those flights. I've bought those flights based on the NFL schedule. So I think the traditional, your power TV networks, old school media, traditional media, Fox, CBS, you can never give that up. Because by the way, do you know a lot of the fans in the NFL are 55 plus? 55 plus people, the older you get, you watch three things: politics, news, and sports on traditional TV. And that's not going away.
I would say the difference though is, and I'm a YouTube TV subscriber, I don't ever go forever, right? You go to a
Yeah.
guide. I don't have a guide. It just shows me, it knows what I like. It just has up Fox Sports. It just has the things I'm watch. So I never go to a guide and search. With the NFL, you don't have to search because you know exactly what you're looking for. But other sports, I don't know baseball games on where I used to 10 years ago. I'm with you. If the NFL if the NBA did NFL numbers and baseball did too, these networks would have it and be fine. I think where it's troubling is the NFL is just the 1 day a week, right? And you have all this empty space. And that's where Netflix and Amazon have such an advantage because they don't give a shit. Their stuff just lives. I saw a study that Netflix gets much more of a retention base on a show when they release all 10 episodes immediately with the show because you're much more, the consumer is so much more used to, especially their consumer, of watching a minimum 2 or 3 episodes immediately. Where whenever you watch a show, let's say on HBO or like a weekly, it throws you off. Like, I'm ready for the next episode. I just think our consumer habits, especially with people under 50, have just changed dramatically in a short period of time. And it's just going to be fascinating. I just think these owners, though, especially their children, have proven whenever this next deal, like whoever has the most money, like they're going to lean that way. That's been Rodgers' big claim. I'm going to get us $25 billion one day, right? That's what they keep going for. And they keep growing and growing. And that's where just the state of the economy, the amount of money Netflix and Amazon have to throw around, it's not a fair fight. If Apple wanted to get involved, they could lap everybody. It's just really, and you're talking about such high numbers. It's why when these teams come for sale, how many people are really involved? Like who has that type money? It's a very, very small percentage of people. It's kind of no different here. Like when this next TV deal's up in 3 or 4 years, it's pretty clear if they want to get involved, and some of them already are, they can just write checks that other people can't even fathom.
All right. This has been good. So John Middlekauff, former NFL scout, 3 and Out, little instant reaction for 35, 40 minutes on the NFL schedule. I loved it.
Great start to, I think, opening weekend, Thursday night game, the Friday night game in Brazil, Sunday night, Rams at Detroit, and then Niners Jets. That's just a great, let's hit the ground running.
All right, buddy. Good talking to you.